Two fellows meet accidentally, like you and me. No connection between them at all. Never saw each other before. Each one has somebody that he'd like to get rid of. So, they swap murders.
Swap murders?
My hair's an absolute mess, and unfortunately I didn't notice until way into the video, so it never really gets fixed. I do apologize, but it is what it is. Hello everyone, and welcome back, or welcome to the Quiet Riot, where we talk film, television, media, with an emphasis on old movies, mysteries, and nostalgic favorites. I'm Ainsley, and in today's video we will be discussing Strangers on a Train, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Now, I go back and forth between whether or not this one or Shadow of a Doubt is my personal favorite Hitchcock movie. They're two of my favorite movies of all time, and they also happen to be two of Hitchcock's favorite of his own work, and I have to agree that they're both really great. And as somebody who's a really big fan of film noir and stuff that are similar into that film noir style, it is no surprise that these two would go head to head for my favorite spot on which Hitchcock film is the best. One of the big things we'll be talking about today is the duality and subtext within the movie. Duality is a really big part of pretty much every film that Hitchcock has done, especially within certain areas. We get a lot of duality in Shadow of a Doubt, and we get a lot of duality here on Strangers on a Train, and there's also quite a bit of subtext as the material is adapted from Strangers on a Train by Patricia Highsmith, who herself was a lesbian, and a lot of the characters in her books are either queer themselves or in some way represent queerness. Unfortunately, Strangers on a Train is not available to watch via streaming anywhere in the US, but it is available to rent or purchase digitally. I will put in the description box below where you can find it. Strangers on a Train is one of Hitchcock's popular yet underappreciated films. The people who know it seem to love it, myself included, and the film's plot has inspired many TV writers on crime shows. CSI, Castle, and Criminal Intent all have episodes similar in plot. The film is adapted from the debut novel of the same name by Patricia Highsmith. While the adaptation is close to the material, there were many things that had to be changed or dialed down due to the Hays Code and the sensibilities of the time. Hitchcock and the writers he works with always have a way to twist the code into its favor. Strangers on a Train is no different. Starring Farley Granger, who previously worked with Hitchcock in Rope, and Robert Walker, Strangers is a psychological thriller film noir with the Hitchcock treatment. On his way to his hometown, Guy Haynes meets Bruno Antony, a charming socialite with a lot to say. Eventually, Bruno has a proposition for Guy. "I'll murder your wife, and you murder my father." Following the pair's meeting, things go horribly wrong. Duality is one of Hitchcock's favorite motifs, and it is present from beginning to end of this film. You have the two main characters who are essentially mirror images of each other. You have kind of the bad guy, he's a very charming, sociopathic type character, and then you got one who is really dealing with a lot of his own anger and turmoil. He has ambitions for politics, he's an athlete, and he wants to marry this woman who he says that he's in love with, and he may be in love with her, but it also will get him ahead in certain areas, particularly in politics. And he has an ex-wife who is his wife. They're estranged from each other, and she is pretty promiscuous. She ends up telling him that she is pregnant with another man's baby and that she will not be signing the divorce papers. Of course, he gets very angry about this, and there is a moment where he really shows, I don't want to say his true colors, but that anger underneath the storm behind the calm or beneath the calm, and that is something that we see start to come out more throughout the entire movie, and things almost get flipped on their head, and things really do by the end of it in terms of where Guy is and where Bruno is within the narrative.
I'll bet I can guess who A is.
In the moment both Bruno and Guy get out of their cars, to the clothes they wear, and the tennis that Guy plays, duality is constantly there. We see both Bruno and Guy get out of the cars. They're essentially one scene where Guy gets out of the car and then you see Bruno and you see them both walking. So they're really kind of showing them both in the same situation, but maybe a little different. They got some different styles going on. You also get some little simple things such as the scotch that Bruno orders, and there's a lot of images of tennis rackets. I will actually put a video where someone did talking about doubles in the description box below if you want to check it out. I do highly recommend the video, and there's a lot of stuff that you're just not going to really notice unless you're definitely looking for it, or you just happen to clock the fact that there's 2 tennis rackets on the lighter and the design on Bruno's very nice tie. One of the funniest little duality moments is when Alfred Hitchcock gets on the train, making his little cameo. Farley Granger is getting off, and he is carrying a double. I thought about too much whether or not I was going to accidentally say bass, that I am going to end up saying bass here. So there's that. Bass.
Don't worry. Be happy.
Other big moments are the 2 wealthy families. We have Bruno's family, which consists of his mother and his father, and then you have Guy's fiance's family, and where her father and their fathers play a role in both the lives of Guy and Bruno in the way they impact the lives of Guy or Bruno. One of the biggest double motifs, duality motifs here, is the one with the glasses. You have Guy's wife who wears glasses, and then you also have Miriam's younger sister, played by a Hitchcock here, and Patricia Hitchcock? Played by Patricia Hitchcock, and she is wearing glasses as well, and that also plays a bit into the plot. We have some really great scenes when it comes to the murder here, and you get to see him in the glasses, and then you see how he takes those glasses, and those glasses really become a symbol of Bruno's crime. And when he sees Patricia Hitchcock's character, he really loses it, and he goes very much into a trance. There are the 2 women at the party that he is talking to, and there's so many things in the past that I wouldn't have recognized as really being an example of duality, or even thinking so much of the doubles aspect of it. But now that that's become something I've thought a lot more about, just hearing other people talk about it and reading different articles, I watch it and I can't really watch it without seeing all of these doubles happening.
Pictures. She's very beautiful.
With the Hays Code, Strangers on a Train and other films had to find new ways to present information that may not be up to code. In Highsmith's novel, the text was far more explicit. There were overtones of queerness, not subtext. In books, authors are able to do more to present the character as they are. In the 50s, film writers and directors had to find ways to present a character's true nature without coming under the fire from studio executives and those over the code. In Strangers on a Train, Bruno Antony, who is Charles Anthony Bruno in the book, is a lot more, he is overtly gay as opposed to being subtly so, or what goes for subtly in the 1950s as gay. And a lot of this is just in how he is presented as an opposite of Guy's character. Guy is a lot more downplayed in the way that he dresses. He wears a lot, his suits are a lot plainer, and then you have somebody like Bruno who is not overtly flamboyant, but his down to his shoes having that black and whiteness, and the black and white that is not just a shirt being white and the coat being black. There's a lot more detail into that. And I'm not saying that every character that you'll see in a movie that has a little more detail, or male character, is going to be coded as gay, but here certainly when it comes to the source material, that is a way to get this character to come across as such, and there's a lot more than just the day clothes he wears. Back in the day, there were many different things that they used to either say or do to represent a character as queer in some way. And for the character of Bruno, one of them is seeing him in a silk robe. He's very classic and sophisticated, and he is that way regardless of what time of day there is. And it's not just simply this is a movie made in the early 1950s, everybody's gotta look good all the time. No, he just kinda, you know, does it up a bit. There's obviously a tiff going on between him and his father. His dad wants him to do something with his life instead of just being this charming playboy who goes around and spends money on train rides and drinks and food. Honestly, that's the life I want to live. There is just a simple thing that you may not even think of unless you know these specific little code words or code clothes, what have you, that they have them wear. But you also have the relationship that Bruno has with his mother, who is played by Aunt Clara herself. Now, I absolutely love her performance here. It's a lot more understated than her more... I mean, just everything about Bewitched is pretty flamboyant when you come to all those witches, her included. So she's a lot more dowdy here, but she's a very loving and caring. She has a very close relationship, and he's definitely a mama's boy. And as Psycho will tell you, mama's boys be murderous. And in some cases, they might just be gay. Now, when it comes to the relationship between these two characters, of course, there is Farley Granger, who is a bisexual male. He is out. I definitely recommend you reading his book, Include Me Out, My Life from Goldwyn to Broadway. It is a really good book. He's very honest about his life, and he has no shame in who he is. I absolutely adore him. And he really brings something special and innocent to this character, and depending who you are, you may almost see it as someone who doesn't get to live his life as openly as, say, someone like Bruno, who really has a safety net and has something that keeps him a lot safer than, say, Farley Granger's character, Guy. Now there's some really great chemistry going on between Guy and Bruno because of Farley Granger and Robert Walker. They work really well together. There's a great chemistry there, and there's these scenes that just happen between them that is almost as if Bruno is like a devil on the shoulder, and then you have the angels on his shoulder, which is Miriam and Miriam's family. Bruno is someone who wants to be seen and admired. He's a flamboyant socialite playboy who wants a life of freedom, and he's willing to do anything to get there. I definitely see Bruno's mother as the loving, doting mother. She doesn't think that her son can do anything wrong, but I definitely see her as more of the caretaker who genuinely loves her son no matter who he is, and his father is just not that person, and that's something that a lot of kids and a lot of people, particularly queer kids, can really relate to. And Of course, back in the day, there wasn't a lot of great there wasn't a lot of great representation for any type of queer character, so villains were pretty much what we get, and it's either that or blatant stereotypes. I really like a good queer villain in the same way that I really like a good female villain. Of course, that's not everything that you want to see on screen, but there's some really good gay and lesbian and bisexual and pansexual and all of the above villains. It's just kind of unfortunate that even some of the villains, though they may be pretty interesting, that they do things that could really harm the community. And in the case of Bruno, I think, give it a couple minutes, baby. In the case of Bruno, I find it to be a bit different because even though he is seen as an either gay or bisexual male, he definitely is a lot more interesting and complex. There's a lot more interesting and complex. There is a lot more to him. Well, Bruno is a bit flamboyant. It's not overtly so to make him look like the sissies and the pansies that were big during the 20s and early 30s. He is pretty much just your everyday male, but he happens to be a lot more put together and have a lot more personality in his clothes than, say, Guy. Bruno is one of my favorite characters in film and in Hitchcock films, if not my personal favorite. I think Robert Walker brings him to life in a way that you look at his face, he's very baby-faced and very innocent looking, and he obviously is not just that, he is sociopathic, and the character in the book is very similar, but he's more like, he's not a teenager, but he's definitely got much more teenager energy, where the character of Bruno is somebody that's just got that like mid-20s, I'm not ready to grow up energy. Hitchcock was aware of the film's gayness, and he really seemed like somebody who didn't want to ever erase that from the adaptation, what was in the original material, similarly to what he did with Rope. He didn't want to erase it entirely. Of course, he had to go by the Hays Code of the time, but that's still very present, and it just seems like that was very, very much part of Hitchcock's nature there. He didn't have anything against the gays, though it might seem a bit different when you kind of think of all of his characters being villains, but that's also within context of the time and what you can get away with. There are two cuts of the film, one released in the US and the other in the UK. The queerness is apparently more apparent in the UK version. And I'm pretty sure at the time that being homosexual was illegal in the UK as well as it was in the US at the time of this film's release. So I'm not exactly sure why there was those big differences there. For any audience, it would be easy to dismiss the queer subtext. After all, to modern watchers, the film doesn't even seem to breach the surface of queerness. What Hitchcock and the writers had to do was find a way to present the characters as they are. Now, from a modern point of view, we have a lot more film and television, all the different platforms that we have, and we have a lot more people making films. Now, of course, this is 2023, and that doesn't mean that people within the community they're still lacking some, people who are queer. There is still a lack of representation because there's a long way to go. When there's so many years of filmmaking and not a lot of representation and not a lot of good representation, there's always going to be a long time to go and far to go. But we're definitely in a very different place. Characters can present more as queer, they can be more open about their sexuality and their gender expression, and things are just a lot different now than they were in the early 1950s. Now, something that I did want to bring up here was gender expression in this movie. It's not as, I would say, complex as the whole Duality and Subtext, but we are talking about a film noir movie here that seems to be lacking a certain femme fatale. Well, that's not exactly the case. Bruno himself is a femme fatale, so Robert Walker has found himself in the role of the spider trying to get his prey into his web, and that prey is one Guy Haines. So you have this dynamic, the cat and mouse, the spider and prey that is occurring between Guy and Bruno, and that is very similar to things you'll see in Double Indemnity and all of these other film noir pictures that have femme fatales in them. And their stories, while not exactly the same, they're of course very similar in formula and presentation. And so I just thought that was very interesting to see a male character at this time in a role that was designated and labeled to be femme fatale. So it's meant to be a female character. Strangers on a Train is a well-loved but underappreciated classic by Hitchcock and his team. The film was originally adapted by Raymond Chandler, who found ways to adapt the book to better represent the sensibilities of the time, and you have other people coming in to really do their incredible job. The cinematography in this movie is some of the best cinematography. It's some of my personal favorites. The close-ups of like the shoes and how the cinematography, the direction, and the costume department, it's just something that goes to show the importance of every job within a film, because there are certain moments and choices by the cinematographer that wouldn't have been as good or wouldn't stand out as much if it wasn't for the costume department. The close-up where you get to see their shoes, and oh my god, like my favorite scene is actually where he looks into her glasses and it's where he's gonna pick up her glasses and she's just died. That is one of my favorite scenes in movie history. Very close to the end moment in this, which if you haven't seen it, I don't want to give it away, but skip ahead if you don't want to know. But the whole entire carousel scene, that doesn't actually exist in the book, so it was done for this movie, and it's one of the best suspense moments in not even just any film in general, but in a Hitchcock movie as well. It really is heart-pounding, and you see there's parts that also within this everything that's happening at the end that almost makes you root for Bruno, and there's this part of me that just really wants Bruno to win out here, and he drops the lighter that he's been carrying that belongs to Guy, and it's in the sewer, and he's trying to get it, and just all of that is just so well done, because it really presents how the tables have turned. Bruno is now the mouse being chased by the cat that is Guy. So this entire film, from beginning to end, while it is very different in the book when it comes to the end, and there are certain big changes that are made, the film that was made is a great representation of the work that Highsmith put into the book, and it also gives you a chance to really, having seen this movie and enjoy the movie, while also getting to go and read the book by Highsmith and really enjoy that one. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch or listen to my video. I really do appreciate it. Strangers on a Train is one of my favorite movies, and if you haven't watched it yet and decide to go check it out, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'd also just like to hear your thoughts about this movie in general in the comments. Please let me know. Maybe we can get a conversation started on the duality and the subtext and everything involved that makes this movie so darn great. And I do have a question for you. Do you think that Strangers on a Train is underrated? I personally do. It seems to be underappreciated, especially when it comes to other movies like Psycho and The Birds and Vertigo, but it's definitely one of his best. I think it has some of the greatest cinematography and direction, and it really shows you how important every aspect of filmmaking is, and that's just one of the reasons that I love this movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend it. If you haven't read the book, I also recommend it. And again, I would love to know your thoughts on either or both. Thank you again. Find out some information in the description box below. There will be some links to videos that I have watched also pertaining to Strangers on a Train, as well as some different articles, my socials, and any little information that you may want to read. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!